Yeah.
I think
you guys remember the
Oh yeah.
natural guy?
I don't know.
Okay, no, we're not saying that.
Okay.
We're not saying that.
I'm sorry.
Oh my god, this is a perfect start to our show.
If we ever
So
hosted a show,
resounding
this is what would
success.
happen every day.
Hello and good morning.
Welcome to the 5 show.
I'm your host Sita.
And I'm Avanti.
Our topic for today will be what is the hallmark of a utopian society and how to achieve it. So let's just jump straight in and invite out our panelists.
Please put your hands together.
So our panelists for today are Nikki from Singapore, China, Jessica from Singapore, Akash from India, and Nicole from Singapore.
Now, the idea for utopian society. Now, the idea for utopian society was originally given by Marx, the German philosopher.
A utopian society is basically an ideal world where there are no problems, no issues, everyone lives in peace and harmony, and there are no conflicts. So let us begin today. What are your views on how to achieve a utopian society, and what is the hallmark of a utopian society? Can we start with Nikki, please?
Sure. From where I'm from, like in China, we are a communism country. So basically, what we've been doing is like achieving the equality. And I think during this process, we've been published a lot of policies that like reducing the wealth gap between the poor and the rich. So like basically through the tax system and through the subsidy system and everything, we are trying to like working on that.
So are you trying to say that essentially a utopian society comes with egalitarianism where everyone is equal?
Yeah, I think it's like total equality and justice. So like everyone with fair opportunity to like develop themselves. Yeah.
But in the 21st century, how practical do you think that idea is?
Yeah, it is utopian anyway. So like, yeah, that's our final goal. But like, we're moving towards that direction, and we go do as the best as we can.
So in a communist society, you basically believe in equality for everyone. So do you think that that would lead to demotivation of some people to work? Because they think that we're not getting enough benefits for all the hard work that we do because our benefits are being distributed to people who don't work. So does that lead to a kind of demotivation and sort of laziness?
Yeah, actually, like in the history, we have these similar problems actually happened. Like some of them are just waiting for others working and they share the same thing. But like it's kind of like being localized, and we're trying to find our pace like in the special Chinese way to like get a combination between like communism and capitalism and yeah.
And what about the what about Nicole and Jessica from Singapore? In a society like yours where the public distribution system and public infrastructure work so perfectly, do you feel that you've come closer to achieving that equality in the span of just a generation?
I think human nature is to never be satisfied. So although something might be amazing, like a society may be very stable, but people will always want more. So, okay, you mentioned that the concept of a utopia came from Marx, right? Yeah, so, I mean, if you look at communism, at Marxism, right, theoretically, it advocates a utopian society, you know, one where everyone is equal and, you know, it doesn't matter your contribution, but everybody gets the same amount of benefits. But you see, because of human nature, it rarely works out that way because we are inherently selfish, I feel. I mean, there are plenty of gracious, lovely people, but of course, we always have selfish parts of us, and there are people who are selfish. And if you look at history, like for example in Russia, they had war communism after Lenin and Stalin, but it didn't quite work out because there were always famines because people didn't understand the need for creating surplus, because all their, for example, the peasants, right? They'll make crops, but all the surplus is going to be taken away and distributed to the rest anyway. So they saw no point in making more than they needed for themselves. So although it would be so lovely to be able to achieve that utopian society, I don't think it's ever possible.
And what about Akash from India? I mean, India has had its own experiments when it comes to trying to adopt a Soviet model of economic growth. But we didn't seem to have much success with that. So what are your views on that?
I think it's important for the government to understand what model of growth would better support a country. India is such a huge country with such large diversity of people. So adopting something that is implemented very well in a smaller population will probably not be successful in such a large population as this.
And now we'd like to move on to our audience. What are your views about communism? Because we've seen communism tried and tested, during the entire Cold War era. We saw it in the Soviet Union. We see a slightly more liberal version of it in China today. We've seen it in Cuba. So we have seen it in different places. And what do you think of its success as a means of achieving a utopia? Jasmine?
Communism, as we have agreed, is almost a utopian ideal, so it is perhaps something that we could aim for. But nonetheless, I personally believe that perhaps it would be better to aim for...
Could you repeat that? We had a bit of a technical glitch there.
And speak into the mic, please.
Communism
On
is
the mic.
Put it on.
Communism is perhaps an idealistic idea in many ways. It is a theory, and it is something that we could aim to achieve, but perhaps it would be better and more productive to aim for a better society as opposed to one which appears idealistic, because that would be more useful in the sense that we could actually achieve a better society, and an idealistic one may only cause some form of extremism in society.
I'd like to ask Jessica a question. Now, a utopia is far off. Do you agree? Yes? It's far off from the world right now. So what do you think are the basic steps that the countries could take individually and together to get a little bit closer to a utopian society?
So personally, I feel that a utopian society should not follow communism, because as we see in Nazi Germany and communist Russia, they have the same idea of equality for the people, and when people work in factories or wherever they work, they get the same pay and the same things. And in the end, these societies, it didn't work out. Their ideology didn't work out because people were motivated. So I feel that for our 21st century, maybe we can adopt a different approach to this concept, and maybe we could apply things like understanding and how to resolve conflicts, because many conflicts in the world now. So a utopian society can be one where we all live in harmony and peace instead.
You brought up the topic of peace and harmony. I'd like to ask all of you, do you really think that in the near future countries can kind of overlook their cultural differences, overlook the disputes that have happened in the past, come together really as one true united world to form a utopian society?
Of course, sorry, you want to speak?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's difficult because everyone, every nation wants to protect its sovereignty. We have our own interests to look out for. It's not just our country, but the government has to think for their people, right? And that's their main concern. We elect the government to think of us, the country that they are running. But that's why we have the United Nations. Of course, we've tried and we failed before, like the League of Nations, and that pretty much fell apart. But because we learn from our mistakes, we understand the need for diplomatic relations. Nobody wants another war. We'll have mutually assured destruction with all the nuclear power that's going on right now. And so I think a lot of governments really do, they definitely do understand the need for this kind of diplomatic relations. And I guess that kind of need, when it does arise, it will definitely, because we're talking about like the world peace at large, right? As in like the order of the entire world. Like if there's something that will threaten that, I really do think that we will come together because it's necessary. Like we're all interconnected. Our economies depend on each other. It's not like we're not separate from each other.
But just continuing on the economic.
Can we, continuing on that topic, does the audience have any questions, please? Any questions from the audience? Yes?
So if you want to achieve this goal, this beautiful goal, so do the developed countries today have the obligation to help developing countries, like financially or politically?
Well, I think developed countries are not obliged to, but they should. For example, in Singapore, we are in the ASEAN, and we help our neighboring countries to develop. We provide like, technical training for them so that they can better their skills and become productive members of their society. And when we help them, they can help us too. So I think if governments in the world keep this in mind, that diplomacy is important for economic relations, and possibly even when you need help, they will help you when they have the power to.
Akash?
So I think what separates humans from other animals is their thinking. So it is important for humans to think of the human species as whole without any divide. So like we can protect ourselves from anything that comes, like for example the dinosaurs were destroyed by an asteroid. So we can protect ourselves from such mass extinction. So we have to think of ourselves as a whole.
Like talking about that divide, actually a book by Thomas Piketty was published this year, which talked about how the economic divide has actually been the maximum in the 21st century. It's greater than it was in the French Revolution when compared to today. So how does the audience feel about that? What is the alternative? Because communism didn't really work out. So how can we start building these economic relations that our panelists are talking about?
Okay. Just to go back on Akash's point, he was talking about the human race working for the human race, right? All right. So what are your views on let's say transhumanism? Do you think the utopian society could be achieved through transhumanism, where the human condition is no longer bound by biology, but by rather just creativity?
After this question, we'll have to wrap up the show. Akash, would you like to answer quickly, please?
That would possibly create a pseudo-utopia, because that is not what humans are meant to be. That's like creating an artificial species to to achieve a utopian society. But that's not what is correct. We should correct ourselves in order to create what is right.
Thank you very much. That's been a very interesting and enlightening debate. Thank you to our panelists, Nikki, Jessica, Akash and Nicole.
And thank you to our audience.
I'm your host, Sita.
And I'm Avanti.
And we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.